Idiot waking up at 62 with $1 million 401k and a body that can't do the trips, the grandkid sleepovers, or the bucket list escapade you worked for. What if I told you there's an IRS pattern that could have let you retire years early penalty-free starting the year you turn 55? At the end of the day, rest with me, because if you're over 50 and do not know the rule of 55, you're playing this game on hard mode. Basically today, we're diving into the rule of 55, how it really works in 2026, and why it might be your ticket to withdraw sooner while you're still healthy enough to enjoy it. In this picture, I'll walk you through the claim rule of 55 requirements most people and some advisors get wrong, why your window of health may finish much faster than your spreadsheet assumes. Basically, how taxes, healthcare, and Social Security fit into this decision. Importantly, and a simpleton step-by-step checklist to see if withdraw ASAP actually makes sense for you. So, what does this mean? Quick note, this, more or less, is education, not personalized tax or investment advice. Talk with a CPA or fiduciary planner before acting on anything here. The reality is, and in the second half of this video, I'll display you a real lifestyle example of a 55-year-old who retires early using the rule of 55 and ends up pay less in lifetime tax than if he keep working. At the end of the day, so do not click away. That portion alone could be worth, actually, thousands of dollars to you. Usually, let me start with the story I see over and over. There's a guy, we'll call him Mike. Mike does everything right. He works until 62, maxes his 401k, end up with a solid nest egg, but by then his knees are shot, his back hurts, and big trips are off the table. He retired on schedule, but not in the physical structure he hoped for. Really, meanwhile, his Sea Orker Linda left at 56, used the formula of 55, and spends her early retirement hike national parks and visiting grandkids across the country. Same ballpark savings, radically different life. Besides, let me ask you, which version do you want to be? Mike with more money on paper, or Linda with more life in her age? Here's the problem. In the United States, the average retirement age is about 62, even though many people expect it to work yearner. But sketch after survey shows a big shock. Roughly half of retirees say they actually retired earlier than planned, often because of health problems, layoffs, or family caregiving needs, not because they were ready. Interestingly, so not only are many folks wait longer than they need to, about 1/2 of them get pushed out of work early than they planned anyway. When their body is declining and their finances weren't built for an early exit, that means a lot of citizenry are hitting retirement at the exact worst time. Checkup inquiry shows that between about 55 and 65, the risk of physical limitations, trouble walking, climbing stairs, doing everyday activities starts climbing quickly. In field English, the decade you're in right now if you're 55 to 65 is likely your last big window of high mobility and energy. Sometimes halt with me because in about 2 minutes I'll show you how the rule of 55 let you align this health window with your money window so you're not rich at 75 and exhausted at 60. All right, let's get specific. What is this rule of 55 everyone living whispering about? At its core, the rule of 55 is an exception in the IRS rules that lets you return money out of certain employer retirement plans early, starting in the calendar 12-month you turn 55 without the usual 10% early withdrawal penalty. Here's why this matters. No doubt normally, if you pull money from a 401k or similar program before 59/12, you owe regular income tax plus a 10% penalty on top unless you qualify for an elision. Obviously, the rule of 55 is one of those exceptions. It says if you leave your job during or after the calendar 12-month you twist 55, you can withdraw from that employer's 401k or 403b without the 10% penalty. You'll still owe ordinary income tax, but no extra slap on the wrist. Key conditions. 1, you must separate from your employer. Basically quit, retire, get laid off in the 12-month you bend 55 or later. Let me put it this way. For many public safety workers, ilk certain police, firefighters, and EMTs, that age can be as low as 50. 2, the exception utilize only to that employer's plan, the one you just left wing, not to old 401ks from previous jobs, and not to any IRA. Tierce, the money has to stay in that design. If you roll it into an IRA after you leave of absence, you lose pattern of 55 protection and IRA withdrawals before 59.5 are generally penalized. 4, your specific plan has to allow withdrawals for divide employees. The IRS allows it, but your kind of employer's rules control the details. Some plans even force lump sum climb down, which can create a big tax bill. Obviously, here's a detail citizenry miss. It's based on the calendar year, not the natal day. In many IRS materials and guidance, if you leave in the same year you turn 55, even if your birthday is ulterior that year, you may measure up for the exception. So leaving in January the year you turn 55 can hush work, not just after your birthday, depending on how your plan reports it. Key takeaway, In a minute, I'll show you a simpleton move that can pull old 401ks under the pattern of 55 umbrella before you leave work. Often, if you've changed jobs a few times, this may be one of the most valuable tips in this video. Why withdraw ASAP power? Be smart. Now, the big question, why should you even consider withdraw as soon as you safely? Also, say at 55, 56, 57, instead of grinding it out to 65 or 67 like everyone tells you. No doubt, financial advisor oftentimes show charts saying if you work 10 more years, you could have hundreds of thousands more in your account. Naturally, mathematically, that's often true. More years of saving, more compounding, but that math ignores two gigantic realities: your health and the fact that many people are forced out earlier than they planned anyways. But here's what's interesting. There's a pattern researchers call the retirement dispersal smile. Notably, in the early go-go years, folks spend more on travel, hobbies, and experience. Indeed, then spending slows down in the slow-go years as people stay closer to home. Finally, it oftentimes jumps again in the no-go age because of healthcare and long-term caution costs. What we're seeing is, in other words, the trips, the hiking, the long walks with grandkids, the big adventures, those belong mostly to your late 50s and 60s. By your mid-70s, it's not that you do not want to spend. You often physically can't spend on the same experiences. Think of Susan, age 55. She has about $900,000 and her stream employer is 401k, a paid-off house and modest dispersal, about $60,000 a year. Her advisor tells her, piece of work until 65 and you might get to $1.4 million. That sounds nice on theme, but Susan looks at her parents' health history and the stats that say a considerable share of people her age develop mobility issues in their 60s. She realizes her best traveling years are likely the next 10 to 12 years, not the dysentery after that. By utilize the rule of 55, she could leave of absence at 56, draw from her 401k penalty-free, and really use that money while her knees still work. Without question, on a spreadsheet, she gives up some future dollars. In real number living, she's trading some spear carrier digits in her 70s for irreplaceable experiences in her 60s. Really, stick around because in the next segment, we'll stack the tax planning on top of this. Done right, retiring a little earlier doesn't always intend you end up with less. It could mean you end up paying taxes at get down rate and keeping more after tax money over your lifespan. At the end of the day, taxes, Roths, and a hidden vantage. Let's talking tax in plain English. The formula of 55 does one very particular thing. Here's the bottom line. It lets you avoid the 10% early withdrawal punishment from your employer plan if you separate in or after the 12-month you bend 55. Indeed, it does not make the withdrawal tax-free. Here's the bottom line. Traditional 401k withdrawals are still assessed like ordinary income. So if you pull $40,000 from a traditional 401k at 56 under the rule of 55, you pay income tax on that $40,000 but no extra 10% penalty. For Roth 401ks, it's more complicated. Surprisingly, if you haven't met age and holding period rules, you've already paid tax on contributions, but your net profit may still be taxable or even penalized. And back down from Roth 401ks are commonly treated as a mix of contributions and earnings. On top of that, many experts warned that rolling a Roth 401k to a Roth IRA can restart the 5-year clock on some earnings and create nasty surprises if you're not careful. So, if you're over 55 and thought, I'll just roll everything to an IRA when I leave of absence, hit the brakes. Let me put it this way. That move power kill your rule of 55 access and change how your Roth dollars are taxed. Now, the conceal benefit, tax windows. Here's where retiring a bit early can in reality help you. Once you leave work, say at 55 or 56, you may have several L'd before social protection beginning, often 62 to 67, and before required minimum distributions kick in at age 73. In those old age, your taxable income may be much lower than while you were work. That can create a tax sweet spot where you can return moderate 401k withdrawals under the formula of 55 and possibly convert some traditional money to Roth at relatively low tax brackets. Some planning articles point out that in early retirement, if you're living your income modest, you can halt in the 10 or 12% federal bracket and even take advantage of 0% long-term capital gains rate on some non-exempt investments. Picture a 55-year-old with around $1.2 to $1.5 million in a current 401k asset, some money in a brokerage account. Instead of working to 65, he leaves at 55. Uses the formula of 55 to draw back, say, $35,000 to $40,000 a year from the program. Adds perhaps $10,000 to $15,000 from a brokerage firm story and keeps his taxable income in a relatively low bracket. Also, those lower income years produce way-to-do Roth transition, moving money from pre-tax accounts into a WTH, paying tax at those letdown rates now, so futurity growth and withdrawals can be tax-free. Usually, so retire a little early with a good plan doesn't just give you more healthy old age. Surprisingly, it can in some cases leave of absence you with more after-tax wealth over your lifetime than if you kept grinding away into your late 60s with a big paycheck. Up next, I'll give you a simpleton checklist. Quint questions to assist you see if the rule of 55 and retiring ASAP power be realistic in your situation. Grab a pen for this part, healthcare and the big gotcha. Before that checklist, we have to talking about the elephant in the room, healthcare. If you leave your job at 55, you lose employer health insurance, and Medicare usually doesn't start until 65. That's a gap of up to 10 age. Articles from retirement planners point out that early retire much underestimate wellness care cost and insurance premiums. Depending on your state and income, a private or Affordable Care Act marketplace plan can run from several hundred to over $1,000 a month for a 60-year-old couple before subsidies. The goodness news, those same sources show that if you keep your taxable income lower in retirement, you may measure up for larger ACA subsidy that reduce premiums. That's another reason careful income planning, not just winging it, is so important. If you're seriously thinking about retiring before 65, at some point after this video, go to healthcare.gov or your province marketplace and stopple in your actual age and a realistic income estimate. Don't guess, see real numbers for your zip code. All right, let's bring this place with a practical checklist. I lack you to imagine we're posing at your kitchen table going through this together. Here are sinky questions to ask before you pull the plug. Use the rule of 55. What's more, 1, do I actually measure up? Interestingly, have you separated or can you separate from your employer in the 12-month you turn 55 or ulterior? Remember, this applies to your current employer's 401k or 403b, not old accounts or IAS. Notably, 2, where's my money sitting? Do you have old 401ks at former employers? Many sources explain that you can often roster those into your current employer's plan before you leave so that more of your savings can be accessed penalty-free under the formula of 55. But once you've already left, that window may close. If you have multiple old 401ks, this one-step perform in the right order could easily be a quintet or six-figure decision over your retirement. 3, what does my particular plan allow? Some plans let you take flexible partial withdrawal after you different. Others may only allow a lump sum, which can push you into a high tax bracket for that year. Importantly, your HR section or program administrator can give you the summary plan description that spells this out. 4, have I really added up my outgo, including healthcare? Listing your real number monthly expense, housing, food, utilities, property taxes, insurance, fund money, and add a line item for health policy and out-of-pocket medical costs. Then adjust upward for inflation over time. Academic and policy research shows many retirees' spending patterns alteration as wellness and mobility change, so be naturalistic about how hanker you power need your money to finish. 5. What's my income and tax strategy between 55 and 70? Honestly, do you have a plan for which accounts you'll tap first? Of course, 401k, Roth, taxable, in which age? Are you intentionally keeping income in sure brackets to manage taxes and maybe do Roth conversions? This is where a fee-only planner or tax pro can be worth every penny, especially if your balances are big. Clearly, remember, surveys show a large share of retirees leave piece of work earlier than they planned, often for reasons they didn't control. Clearly, but the pattern of 55 is about taking control, lining up your money with your wellness and your clip on purpose instead of waiting until your physical structure or your boss makes the decision for you. Actually, if you're 55 or older in America right now, you, basically, are standing at one of the most essential crossroads of your financial life. You may have more power than you realize. The IRS has quietly given you a door, the rule of 55, that can let you measure out a full-time piece of work early, without give that spear carrier 10% punishment that keeps so many people chained to their jobs. Here's my challenge to you after this picture. Call your HR department this week and ask, does our program permit rule of 55 withdrawals? And what are my distribution options after I leave? Shuffle a simple tilt of your monthly expenses, including a line for wellness policy. And if you're within a couple old age of 55 or already past it, sit down with a tax-smart planner who understands early retirement and the rule of 55, not someone who only knows piece of work until 67 and hope. You can always make more money. You cannot brand more time. The question is not just, can I yield to retire? It is, can I afford to give away my healthiest old age? If this helped you think differently about your own retirement, do tierce things for Uncle John. Think about it this way. Of course, hit that like button so YouTube shows this to more folks your age who need to hear it. Subscribe to Uncle Confiscal for more plain-spoken, no-nonsense retirement videos. And in the comments, tell me your age and whether you want to retire before 60 or if you're planning to piece of work longer and why. I read those comments and they help me make better videos for you. I'm Uncle John reminding you your money is crucial, but your clip and your wellness are priceless. Let's use the normal to your advantage, not theirs. I'll see you in the next